MLS's 2025 season starts tomorrow. We make our Western Conference predictions and we talk community club ownership with the one and only Peter Wilt. That and more here on Friday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You made it. This is Morning Kickaround, where we cover the world's game in the world's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. I hope you're doing well. How are you, sir?
Friday. I'm ready for Friday. I'm ready to talk to Peter Wilt. I made this joke on Blue Sky, and I'm sure people really understood what I was talking about. I said that no American soccer show, podcast, YouTube show, whatever, is really legit until Peter Wilt makes an appearance. So today is the day when we go legit. Peter Wilt's coming on the program.
So Peter's going to essentially be the boat when they christen it. They smash the champagne bottle on the side.
Are you saying that Peter Wilt is a boat or he's a champagne bottle? Which one of those things is Peter Wilt?
We're the boat, and Peter's going to smash his champagne bottle upon us.
All right, it's getting uncomfortable. I'm not sure exactly what that imagery you're trying to evoke, but yeah.
He's pushing us out into the water.
Right, okay, right. We're just going to go with this analogy. Peter Wilt is here. There's champagne bottles and boats, and we're going to talk soccer. Let's do that.
Before we get to him, the Champions League draw happened, didn't it?
It did. A little quick addition of long balls for you before we get to Peter. Champions League draw happened, and I'm torn, Robert. Should we have wanted Bayer Leverkusen and Bayern Munich at this point? Should we have wanted a Madrid derby at this point, or would those things have been better left for potentially later in the tournament, even if they were not going to be guaranteed?
It's good to save the big ones for later on in the competition. They probably want that in the semifinals or the finals potentially, right? I mean, the biggest matchups in the biggest stages of the contest, I can't be too mad about it. Is there anything that kind of hopped off the page other than that for you?
Well, I mean, obviously the alternative to Bayern Munich, Bayer Leverkusen, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid would be to have, Bayern playing, Atleti or something. Again, the way this played out, this was just kind of how it had. I guess it was inevitable that we were going to get some matchups that felt too early in the way the format is set up, right? And that the league phase, you kind of go, yeah, this is what we want in the league phase. We want these massive matchups between these huge clubs, and that's so great. And it makes the format more interesting in the first part of the tournament. But now you're here and you're like, oh, okay. So one of those massive German clubs is going to be out. One of the Madrid clubs is going to be out. Let's also mention that your Liverpool, finishing top in the table, their reward is to get a PSG team that just crushed Brest 10-0 or whatever that was on aggregate in the last round.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most surprising score lines. I haven't seen that kind of score line in the Champions League since, Celtic game or something like that a couple years back. That was pretty oversized, not a balanced tie there. Brest, they looked good, but eventually sag out of the competition.
They don't have the depth. They don't have the same kind of firepower, the money to be spent. Anyway, obviously for Liverpool, it's going to be a challenge. But I guess if you're going to be European champions, you're going to have to go through a team like PSG, right?
Yeah, I'm not as worried, to be honest. I mean, we've beat PSG in the past. Liverpool has. So, I mean, yeah,
famous
it is,
last words.
Yeah, well,
famous
fair
last
enough.
Words.
If you can't beat the teams that you don't deserve to win.
But you would rather have PSV Eindhoven the way that Arsenal does in this round of 16, right? You would rather have PSV Eindhoven than PSG.
Yeah,
let's not
pretend
that's otherwise. Okay. Brugge and Aston Villa. So Brugge surprising Atalanta, but Aston Villa has to like that draw, I would think. Dortmund is having this wild, weird season. They get Lille. Lille's dangerous, and I don't think that you can count on Dortmund to be good right now. But still, if you're Dortmund, that's fine. Benfica, Barcelona. So Barcelona, that's not an easy draw. Benfica's good, but they're not one of the heavy hitters.
Yeah, they've had classic matchups in the past, Barcelona and Benfica.
They absolutely. And Inter Milan getting Feyenoord, who of course famously knocked off Inter's in-city rival, their San Siro stadium mates in AC Milan. So that's fascinating too.
Yeah, the last remaining Italian team, right? They had a pretty tough go of it in the last round of the Italian teams with Atalanta, Juventus, and Milan all crashing out. But exciting times for Arsenal fans. Madrid derby. Wow, that do you think that'll ever match what that once was when back in the days of the intensity when those two Madrid powerhouses met in the Champions League final? What was that?
Have you not been paying attention? They had a stadium issue back in September. Game had to be paused. Fans going crazy because Thibaut Courtois riled him up or whatever is being claimed. We just had one that was eventful again. I believe that was a 1-1 draw not that long ago. So I don't think the intensity has declined when you're talking about Diego Simeone on one side and Real Madrid on the other. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's a powder keg, to use an old colloquialism. Those guys, very combustible. And Real Madrid, I feel like every game sparks some sort of moment of drama and controversy. So we shall see these games. The first, it's a two-legged draw in the round of 16 with the first games coming the first midweek of March. And then our second quick little long ball here before we get to Peter Wilt here this morning. United States women's national team back in action and getting in the win column in the She Believes Cup with a 2-0 win over Colombia.
Yeah, I mean, the story here is that Emma Hayes continues to sort of deepen the squad, bring in players that we know. Like, let's not say we don't know these players, but in some cases they just haven't been part of the picture yet, or injury has been part of the story. Obviously for Catarina Macario, it's been injury that has been the thing that slowed her down in her influence on the U.S. Women's National Team. So for her to score in this game, the opener in the 33rd minute, she looks good. And Ali Sintnor gets the second one, an absolute banger for the Utah Royals player. But I think a lot of people are highlighting 17-year-old Lily Johannes, who, of course, came through Ajax and their system, but was born right in my backyard, like 10 minutes from my house, the town she was born in, Springfield, Virginia. And she looks legit. 17-year-old superstar in the making. I don't think you cannot be excited about Lily Johannes in the midfield. And, yeah, I mean, this is going to be that slow sort of, we're turning things over, right? We're moving beyond some names that have been so entrenched in the U.S. Women's National Team. Not to say that they don't have a role as some of them age just a little bit, but there will be, more and more of these names that you're like, oh, I need to learn who Ali Sintnor is. I need to learn who Lily Johannes is. I need to learn who Tara McCown is. Like, those players are going to be more of the picture.
Yeah, for context, just to put, set the scene, if you are not familiar with Lily Johannes, she is a teenager who is a, locked-in starter at Ajax, so that speaks to the level of where she's at already and the trajectory that she's on.
What I love about Lily Johannes is we had a true dual national situation when it came to Lily Johannes. The Dutch are not happy that she decided to play for the U.S. Women's National Team. And I love that. I mean, I love that we've got that rivalry thing happening. We do this in men's soccer so much. And often what's had happened, now it's changed a little bit, but what's happened in the past is like we get players that really weren't going to make it for a Germany or for a Holland or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's great. They're playing for us. I'm so glad they're American. We welcome them in. But were they really ever going to break through, with those teams? Probably not. In this case, the Dutch have a very good women's program and a national team, and they've done things. And Lily Johannes was like, I'm going to play for the United States. And the Dutch were like, I can't believe you do that. How dare you? And it's like, yep, score one for America. Like, we get to feel better about ourselves just a little bit.
First, we swoop Serginho Dest, and now Lily Johannes, the Dutch-American pipeline, growing strong, getting some good players there. Good morning to those in the chat. Mitch, the day does not start until the rooster crows here in the morning. Before we get into our segments, remind you to hit the subscribe button. Morning kick round. We blasted past 900. On the way to 1,000. It's been fantastic. We've really jumped up over the last couple of days. So help us, if you have not already, hit the subscribe button, be the very next, and then recommend to one of your people to be the very next after you to subscribe to the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. You can follow us along at social media at mkickaround. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, and support us with a little bit of pocket change or maybe something a little bigger. Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. All right. We're going to take a quick pause and be right back with the one and only Peter Wilt here on Morning Kick Around.
Let's do it.
Hot topic here on Friday morning, February 21st. After a couple busy weeks in American soccer news, an NASL lawsuit, USL's Division I announcement, we wanted to check in on the state of the American soccer pyramid. And to help us dig into this, brought on serial soccer club starter and occasional wedding officiant, a man responsible for starting up to 15 American clubs, Peter Wilt. Welcome to Morning Kick Around, sir.
Thank you, gents. It's great to be on the show. And I do want to get my own nomination in for the Rooster soccer pun.
Okay.
A take on True Grit. Rooster soccer burn.
Okay. All right.
Does
Now,
that's a good one. Does that beat out Peck Shea, though?
No, nothing beats out Peck.
I mean, come on. That's good. Now, I will point. What's funny about this is that people maybe don't know. Anyway, Peter Wilt is here. Peter, so good to see you again. It's been a long time since you and I have had a chance to chat. The end of my old radio show has made it tougher to find ways to talk to Peter Wilt about American soccer, and that makes me sad. So first of all, so good to see you. I hope things are well.
All is really well. It's great to talk to you again.
All right,
and
so
thank you for sporting the Forward Madison, the drip kit.
I'm making it a habit when we have guests to try to reference some of their background, some of what they're doing. Yeah, I don't have a shirt for every situation, but I do have a couple of Forward Madison shirts. I got to get my hands on. I do have a Fire shirt. I got to get my hands on a Indy 11 shirt. I don't have one of those. I mean, you're wearing Chicago house gear.
I should. Stars.
Yeah,
they're not the Red Stars anymore.
Oh, that's right. They're the Stars. Oh, quickly.
How are those new kits looking?
Can we get a Peter Wilt comment on the end of the Red Stars name?
It's awful. It's chicken. It's unbelievable. It's like Chicago Fire changed their logo to the crown yellow disaster, and then the Red Stars are sitting there saying, "Hold my beer."
Indeed.
They changed it to a classic. The brand connected with the community. The Red Stars literally on the city of Chicago flag. And they change it to Stars, which is about as generic a soccer name as it might as well be a rec team, a U10 team in Naperville or something. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to sort of own the generic name after time. And if you make it, like, for example, we highlighted Richmond and the Richmond Kickers with Elliot Barr this week. And Kickers is not some incredibly creative name around soccer, and yet there is one of those. It's the Richmond Kickers, and it's theirs, and they own that. And I feel like, Stars, maybe if you had done that 30 years ago, but that's not how it works. And now the rebrand ends the unique nature of that. I would figure not. All right, so Peter, part of the reason to bring Peter on is obviously it's an interesting moment in American soccer, but he and I had a little back and forth around the NASL lawsuit over on Blue Sky. And without sort of diving into the minutia of the lawsuit, Peter, tell us what you had hoped would come out of the NASL lawsuit and maybe, as we sit, what it looks like it might or might not have done.
A big part for me was find a way to leverage a change in the pro league standards. And I know from what Steve Bank was saying that it wasn't on the table anymore after some things changed in the process. But even just the threat of having the pro league standards resulting in future litigation leading to a new examination of it. I think we need to make ownership opportunities in the United States more disparate. We need to have it similar to the rest of the world, where you can have all sorts of types of ownership. You can have a bunch of kind of rich people. You can have a nonprofit organization. You can have thousands of passionate people that put a little bit of money in, or you can have one high net worth guy. As long as it's a structure that allows for success, and some of it is trial by error. And frankly, the system they've had with pro league standards in America has been all error, right? Since 1992, when they instituted pro league standards in America, you know how many teams have been sanctioned as professional? Take a guess.
What's the number?
268. Okay?
Yeah.
You know how many remain that have not folded? 70.
Not 268. Okay.
70. So 100, and if my math is good, 170 or so have folded, or one. Yeah.
No, if it's 268 and there are 70 left, then that's 198 that are dead.
Better at math than I am. So what they have in place hasn't necessarily worked, at least not by itself. So restricting who can get in doesn't make sense. And then you have the issues like waivers. Well, waivers were granted to MLS through this whole time. Obviously, Phil Anschutz owning 6 teams, Lamar Hunt owning 3, Bob Kraft owning a couple. You needed waivers for that, and it was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Or you had the stadium in Columbus, the horseshoe. Well, that sure didn't meet the standards. It was like 20 yards wide. Okay, a bit facetious. So waivers were no problem. I think MLS was looking for something like 8 waivers the year after U.S. Soccer refused to give NASL 2 waivers. And so there obviously was stuff going on. And then some of the information that's come out, shows that there was some collusion and connection between U.S. Soccer and MLS to make NASL go away. So it's disturbing. But as far as to answer your question, what I hope changes is that there are more ways for different types of owners to get involved in the sport in this country.
Okay, so let me come all the way back to sort of the beginning of this. First of all, just as a simple statement, should there be any professional league standards dictated by U.S. Soccer?
Sure. Yes. I think they should be involved in it. But I think that the leagues themselves should have a great say in terms of what risk they're willing to take, because it's the league that's going to survive or not survive based on the quality of ownership they bring in.
I'm certainly sympathetic to the idea of why even bother with this when you've got 198 clubs that have died. What's the point of having standards to say we're trying to make sure clubs survive or are stable, and then clearly doesn't matter, it's not working. So when you and I had our interaction, the largest part of this for you is the community club model. And we have seen that pop up in a couple of places. Obviously, famously, American sports fans will know the Packers are community owned in a way. So, is that what do you think that will do initially for the sport in America? How do we
I think we're seeing it in the lower tiers. In pre-professional, what Minnesota Aurora is doing, what Detroit City did as an amateur team, what Chattanooga has done, San Francisco City. There's some great examples out there of true community-owned teams. And they've had when they go pro, like Detroit City, they've kind of had to fake it to make it. But the real beauty of those teams is that they're community-owned. But also nonprofit organizations. Mexico's got a number of university-owned teams. And they seem to be doing well. And university isn't the only way to do a nonprofit that supports a pro team. So I just think there's different ways to do it. The Bundesliga, the stereotypical response to this is, Barcelona would not be allowed to operate under U.S. Soccer Pro League standards, or most of the Bundesliga.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of a middle ground where you're, providing some guidelines and some like a little bit of framework and having a bar to meet. But when those standards and requirements are more restrictive than safety oriented, it kind of gives you some pause and maybe encourages there probably is some room for some, either mass waivers or some revisions in those
Right.
guidelines.
And I think if you have representatives of all the leagues that are affected by it involved in the decision making for US soccer, you'll get to a better set of standards. Whereas in the
Okay.
past, we've essentially had MLS dictating what those standards are.
Right, right. I mean, and look, and I'm not trying to make apologies here for collusion, certainly, but I do think that obviously one of the thoughts is, and whatever, the relationships are part of the story, but one of the ideas is we need a league to make it, and a sort of glamorous first division league to make it, to sort of pull everybody along. Now, you don't have to buy into that theory, but that may be part of what we're thinking of here. And I guess, Peter, as someone who has obviously been involved in Major League Soccer from the beginning, or near the beginning, certainly you understand what it's like to start a league in this country, to start clubs in this country. Is it just sort of okay? Should we just sort of accept the idea of a Wild West league rich country? Because what I keep talking about is, in a lot of places there's sort of a cultural current that pulls everybody along and kind of keeps everybody within the banks of this flow. We don't really have that here, and you can start a league if you want to, and obviously the PLS apply. But as we're about to talk about with USL, if you can meet them, doesn't matter. U.S. Soccer can't tell you not to operate. There's no cultural pressure to not rock the boat, which, again, I get some people think we need to do more of.
Yeah, if there was a true open system, I'd be more comfortable with a single determined, this is the way it must be. But the fact is, it's a closed system. And so the opportunity for anyone to start a club and work their way up through meritocracy doesn't really exist in this country. I think what USL is doing is a step in the right direction. I think it has a key flaw in it, but I applaud USL for the announcement last week.
What would
Are you
that
going to
key
tell us
flaw?
what the
Yeah,
key flaw?
what's the flaw?
Well, the flaw, I find it fascinating, and not that I spend my life on social media, though some people probably think I do. I've read through and listened to a number of your kick arounds. I think there's great discussion. I think there's some great feedback coming in here, but maybe I'm missing it. But I have not seen anyone that's looked at the USL announcement and the USL vision and said, "Wait a minute, they're still not addressing territorial exclusivity." Right?
Okay.
They're still selling monopolies
Yeah.
and allowing one team per market. And that's not a true open system. I mean, the beauty of the sport in the rest of the world is that you derive the competition by having multiple teams in the same market.
This is interesting, right? Because I do think that you kind of get boxed in thinking as an American in the way the game is always operated, and you forget that, this is a little bit of bread and circus kind of stuff to me. That this is like, oh, we're going to start a first division league and we're going to put at the top of a pyramid, and we'll have promotion and relegation, and people get buzzy about promotion and relegation. But as you said, Peter, it's not open. You still have to buy a franchise within the USL system. But this, again, comes back to my issue of we're a country of leagues. We're not a country of clubs.
Yeah, it's a huge country, and that helps or hurts, I suppose. But it provides the opportunity for multiple leagues existing. I mean, the fact that women's soccer has 2 first division leagues, pro leagues, no second division, no third division, and 3 national pre-professional leagues is remarkable. And I suppose maybe it's just a sign of where we are in the evolution of women's soccer, and time will fill those gaps. But it shows that the country is big enough to support 2 different first division leagues. So as long as they have different concepts, an open system and a closed system, I think the marketplace will show there is room for those 2. And I heard your discussion the other day about competing leagues in American sports history, AFL, NFL, WHA, NHL. In all those cases, the mergers were not truly mergers; they were acquisitions.
Right.
And I, there's some thought that that's how this could go down. It is more difficult for an open system league and a closed system league to have a merger because you have to have a compromise of values. And it's not like the business models are the same. They're different business models. I mean, USL is essentially owned privately by a couple of folks, and to have that as a merger is not likely. If it would happen, it would more than likely be an acquisition.
I mean, yeah, there's so many complicating factors to the business part of this, and I'm not, going to say I'm an expert here, but as you said, USL, which is an organizing structure, right? They'll sell franchise rights, and those people that own the clubs in a way that MLS owners don't own their clubs exactly on paper. But as like obviously putting those jigsaw puzzle pieces just don't fit together. So I guess one thing I without making it kind of dreary and sad, even as we kind of get some exciting news and people want to be excited about it, Peter, is there a reason to think that something like what the USL is doing is a step in the right direction towards one day getting the open system you want?
Absolutely. In ProRel is a big part of an open system. I don't mean to diminish it by talking about open territories. I think promotion relegation gives meaning to every game, and it incentivizes teams to be better, and it rewards success, and it penalizes incompetency, and that's a huge part of an open system. There's obviously other elements, training compensation, solidarity payments. And it starts to look more like the rest of the world at a time when, frankly, the rest of the world, some of it is trying to look like a closed system, Mexico. And I'm obviously a huge advocate for the open system. And so I hope it either wins out or at least it gets a platform for the public to embrace.
We've only got you for a couple more minutes here, so I want to sneak this in. How do you think the NASL lawsuit decision painted, or do you think it connected in any way to this USL Division I announcement? Are those connected in any way, do you think?
My instinct is yes, it did. It was connected. They waited for the announcement to see what the landscape was going to look like. I assume there may have been a thought process of let's let U.S. soccer attack one issue at a time and not convolute the two issues. And maybe if the decision would have gone a different way, that may have impacted how or when they would have made this announcement. But I'm probably not the best person to ask that question. I mean, I'm sure it was more than coincidence that the timing happened when it did.
Yeah. All right. Peter, again, incredible to have you back on the show or anything I'm doing. I do appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to tell people about what you're doing right now?
Sure. I've got part ownership in 5 lower tier teams. I'm working with Michael Hitchcock, Chris Knowlton, and Evan Nadaner on I'm wearing the scarf of Iron Rose FC. Iron Rose FC is outside Sacramento in Roseville, California. We're working with the Roseville Soccer Club. It's a giant of a youth program with 4,000 members. We led the country in attendance for pre-professional women's soccer last year with 2,000 fans a game. We were undefeated. We're launching our men's team this year, Iron Rose FC, in League for Clubs. League for Clubs is going to be a great story going forward. It has the opportunity to be the open system league we all want. They will be affiliating with semi-pro regional leagues that will give it a critical mass of teams and a pyramid in the semi-pro sphere. And then hopefully someday enough of those teams will start third division pro teams, right? And then you have the pyramid going from third division pro down, and then maybe you get a second division, then you get a first division, and then that's the pyramid that has an open system, that has no territorial exclusivity, and it has promotion relegation. Dennis Crowley, Kingston Stockade, Eric Housley at Napa Valley, Sonny D'Alessandro at Tulsa. There's some really good ownership in that league. It's up to about 40, 45 teams already in their first year. Proud to work with them. And Chicago House is doing great things. We've added a women's team in WPSL. We have U23 teams, men and women. We have youth programming across the board. We have a team in Westfield outside London that is part of our family. So doing a lot of things, fun things, lower tier soccer, grassroots soccer, community soccer, I believe is where some of the best soccer development is right now in America. And thanks, guys, for having me on. I'm really grateful.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much, Peter. Always in the mix with soccer teams here in the United States. Thank you so much for shedding light and discussing the current state of the American soccer pyramid. It is a unique moment right now. And go check out the interview we did with Dennis Crowley talking about the League of Clubs. Peter mentioned their fascinating new take on that pre-professional stage in the American soccer landscape. If you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button. We are on the march to 1,000. We might even be there by the end of this program, Jason. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Follow us on social media at mkickaround, or write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or one-time donation, or maybe schedule something a little bit more regular. Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. We would, be over the moon if you were able to send anything our way in taking steps towards sustainability and growth of this program.
Yeah, I would like to add to your plugs real quick there, Robert. Yeah, please, if you want to support the show, that'd be incredible. If you are interested in being a sponsor, maybe you have a soccer business or any business whatsoever, you want to be a sponsor of Morning Kick Around to help keep us going so we can do things like talk to Peter Wilt about the pyramid of American soccer and the current state, please. I mean, I want us to be a home for that stuff. I'm not sure there's anybody out there. I know there's some very good content being made by people who care about lower division soccer in America, but I'm not sure anybody's covering all this stuff in one big pot, the big picture stories, obviously mixing in some MLS and some USL and the women's national team and WSL. We're going to try to be some of those things. So if you want to see this show continue to grow and thrive, hit us up on Ko-Fi, or reach out, find out, and we're going to be adding some layers to how you can support the show in the future. So be on the lookout for that.
All right, stick with us. We're going to come right back in just a few moments. We'll talk MLS Western Conference here on Morning Kick Around. Big question here on Friday, February 21st, 2025. We are, just over 24 hours away from the kickoff of Major League Soccer's 30th season. So the big question here today, we talked Eastern Conference on Wednesday. Big question here on Friday, what will Major League Soccer's Western Conference look like here in 2025?
So I got my Western Conference order. And I also we'll make picks. I'll make picks, definitely, and I guess I'll pull Robert into this.
I guess the other guy will talk about it too.
Supporter Shield, MVP, that kind of thing. So here is my order for the Western Conference. Feel free to pick it apart. I recognize there are some flyers. I'm taking some risks. I'll start at the bottom. San Diego FC. Welcome to Major League Soccer. Here is your last place trophy.
So they're going to be spoon-winning debutantes? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's possible they don't win the spoon. I think that is possible. But I think there is a very strong likelihood that they could win the spoon, considering I'm still so down on Toronto right now. As much as I want to believe they're making progress, so down on Toronto right now. It could be Toronto, but
Toronto's making better moves on the path to the bottom, you're saying. And shout out, just take a quick pause, that wooden spoon, one of the most organic American fan things that there was no corporate buy-in or anything. That was, I think maybe that started with the Fire fans or something like that. But shout out to wooden spoon being a true American fanism.
I believe, did the ISC maintain the wooden spoon just like they do with the Supporter Shield? Is that right? I think that's right. I also say that the thing about the wooden spoon that is worth noting is that a couple of years ago, for obvious reasons, I believe it was renamed in honor of Anthony Precourt. I believe it's called the Anthony Precourt Memorial Wooden Spoon or something like that. So, yeah, good stuff on the wooden spoon. Okay, Chucky Lozano, Sure, maybe he has a good season. I like Luca de la Torre. It's not like they put together a disastrous sort of on paper team. I don't know. In their first year,
Is it going to be
it's gonna be
Minnesota United bad, you think, for first year?
ooh, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that bad. And I don't think it's going to be FC Cincinnati bad either. But I just have them at the bottom. I find it hard to justify not picking the expansion team for the bottom spot, even though I know we have some recent history where expansion teams surprised. St. Louis surprised, right? So Vancouver at 14. New coach. A lot of
mystery.
a lot of the energy about Vancouver came from Vanni Sartini, and they fired Vanni Sartini, and everybody's kind of like, why did they fire Vanni Sartini? And nobody has a good answer for why they fired Vanni Sartini. I think Brian Gould is underrated, and I like Brian White a lot. And it's not like they don't have some players, but it's hard. Somebody's got to be 14th. Sporting Kansas City in 13th. I watched them in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Inter Miami, a game that they lost 1-0. They didn't look terrible-ish. And, they have added some pieces. I mean, everybody has, but they've added some pieces, and I'm a fan of Peter Vermees. I don't see it right now. At number 12, I have the Houston Dynamo. I feel like maybe I'm being a little unfair to the Dynamo, and they could be in the playoff hunt, and they might be. I mean, I think there's this group of, 7 through 12 or even 13, and you could switch any of those up, and I would be like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't see it. It's not so firm that you could say, well, Houston can't make a playoff spot. But they lost Coco Carrasquilla, or they sold him. They sold, or they said goodbye to Hector Herrera after what happened with the spitting incident. I believe they're in the process of maybe selling one of their center backs, one of the best center backs in the league, in Michael. And I don't know. FC Dallas at 11. I think some people are higher on Dallas because of the Lucho Acosta acquisition.
I'm not sold. I have a feeling that might be if we have a prediction for flop of the year, I think he might be in the running.
I mean, you look at all the stuff that has led into the move to Dallas, and it's kind of like, well, none of that gives you confidence that he's going to just start tearing the league up again.
No,
with a very different group. Right, and not there's some pieces there that are not quite the same level as what Cincinnati brought to the table, and I think defensively there is some of that concern too. I got Colorado at 10. Yeah, I like Georgi Mihailovic.
But credit to him for that banger in the Champions Cup. By the way, that should be mentioned again.
Yeah, they beat LAFC in the Champions Cup. Are they going to be bad? No, they won't be bad. But again, we're talking about a point or two. Right, I'm sort of just guessing that Colorado might be 3 points behind Portland, and then that means they're in 10th because San Jose will be 2 points behind Portland or a point behind Portland. San Jose at 9. That's me believing in Bruce Arena getting him to the playoffs, but I couldn't justify more than just barely sneaking into the playoffs at number 9. Are you buying the idea that Bruce Arena is going to make San Jose competitive?
I think that number 9 is a safe bet because obviously they were way down in 2024. So you do imagine that Bruce Arena being the MLS expert and coaching, I think stalwart for lack of a better word. I think he will show improvement. And legend. I think that, legend. Yeah, fair enough. Better word. And 9 is, I can see why you put them there. Comfortable. That's a big jump without getting too far over your skis.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of just my faith in Bruce, and he's put together a competent team, and he's got Chicho Arango, who, if his head is on straight, will score goals. He will score goals. I got Portland at 8. I don't know about DaCosta. Obviously, Phil Neville is talking him up right now ahead of the new season, and they hope that he replaces what Evander gave them, because obviously that's the big move. That's the thing that stands out. Evander was so important to them on the attacking end of the field that they have to replace him.
Yeah, with that notable switcheroo, that was basically one of the big stories of the offseason was the Evander leaving and who would they bring in if they were able to. And so I think that's one of the major storylines to think and to watch out for is DaCosta, the Evander replacement. Is he what they think he is or what they need him to be?
Is it? And this is the question for Portland too. Is this the year that Diego Chara finally drops off a cliff?
Yeah,
finally.
Is this gas tank ever running out?
Yeah, is he on fumes, or has he been on a quarter tank for 5 years and he's just going to keep chugging along? All right, so That a lot of hinges on that. And to Harry's point, he thinks I'm low on Houston and Dallas, and I'm high on Portland and San Jose. And I think those are reasonable arguments. I'm gonna buy a little bit on DaCosta and Diego Taurasi still being good enough, and I'm gonna buy on Bruce Arena making San Jose competent and effective. Real Salt Lake at number 7. They just always are there somehow. They finished third last year. And they did that despite the fact that Chicho Arango disappeared in the second half of the season. He got suspended. He came back. It was never good after that. He just didn't score goals in the second half of the season, and yet RSL still managed to find a way to finish third in the Western Conference. I think they will take a step back, but I still see them in the playoffs. Number 6, I got Austin, and I know that some people are going to think that this is buying a little high on Austin FC.
I would say it's high.
But again, this is a club that showed some ambition in the offseason. They went out and they spent some cash. They have one of the biggest signings. It kind of went under the radar because we talked a lot about Atlanta, and we talked about the cash for trade moves for Evander and Lucho Acosta and Jack McGlynn and Dejan Joveljic. But Austin went and spent a big chunk of cash on Brandon Vasquez. I don't know if you think he's going to score goals in MLS again. And I know some people say, oh, he's too streaky. Can't depend on him. All right, maybe.
He'll have at least one good run this year, I bet.
Mirto Uzuni is the guy that they broke the bank on. 29-year-old Albanian who has done very well in places like Spain. So I think he will be good enough to lift Austin. LA Galaxy at 5. That's the defending champions. I know. No Ricky Puig until August.
Yeah, I got to
No
say.
Joseph Pancil. He's out until, I don't know, April or something. So, yeah. And Joveljic is gone. Yeah. I know. But,
I mean, big notable thing. Was he the biggest, or was he the first or the biggest cash? He was the first cash for trade player in the league, right? When he went to Sporting Kansas City here in the offseason. And I think I'm a little bit bummed. I mean, I know it's the nature of the league, but I wanted to see more of, mid to late season LA Galaxy. That was one of the most fun Major League Soccer teams to watch in recent memory, and just Puig and Joveljic and a couple other those players were really, really good, and they were really, really fun to watch. It is a little bit disappointing that they will take a step back this year.
Yeah, I mean, they will take a step back, but I still think they'll be good enough to be in that mix. As you can see.
And one of my favorite memories was Ricky Puig in the final, his gradual undressing as the MLS Cup final went on. Like he was so sharp in like a 3-piece suit at the beginning, waving. Yeah. Everyone was so excited to see him. And as the game wore on, the tie came off, and then the jacket came off, and then more and more buttons came down. And then by the end of the day, after in the locker room celebrations, I think he was in his underpants in an ice bath or something like that. That was a great MLS memory, how they documented that.
As you do. Hi, Harry. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for your comments on MLS. We appreciate that. Harry is saying that Austin is going to score goals, which was last year's problem, and that they are going to be better without Josh Wolf in charge. We'll see what Nico Estevez can do. At number 4, I got St. Louis. I can't tell you more than just a gut instinct that Olaf Melberg and that team is going to be effective. And again, they could be down in 7th, and that would push everybody else up, and I wouldn't say that is a crazy thing. They could be out of the playoff picture. Right, there is a big the thing about these teams is that some of them have such high ceilings and low floors, right? So the gap between the heights they could reach and the absolute failure is big. As opposed to, when we get to the top end of this, you'll see that I don't think that's the case for some of these elite teams in the conference. St. Louis is just kind of me taking a flyer. Minnesota, I really do believe in Minnesota. I believe in Kelvin Yeboah. I believe in Eric Ramsey as a manager. I believe they've got a solid midfield that knows what it's doing, that can keep the game under control. I do think that there are some situations where they might find themselves in trouble, but I think they're going to be effective largely. And again, last year RSL finished 3rd, so why not Minnesota this season?
Do you think they're going to be able to score goals? Can they live and find the back of the net without Timo Pukki?
I mean, Pukki was okay, but he wasn't like hammering them in every week. So I don't think losing Pukki is some disaster for Minnesota United. And I think Kelvin Yeboah is going to score goals this season and be the guy that carries them along. I think Bongi scores goals again this season, and they have again, they've got guys that know how to do this. Robin Lod has carried them at times on the attacking end of the field, and he's still there. I know he's 31, but I don't think he's dropped off yet. So I like Minnesota. LAFC at number 2. They just know what they're doing. They have a solid plan. Steve Trundle will squeeze the game until it's not fun anymore, except when Denis Bouanga's on the break. But that makes them effective, Robert.
Yeah, I would say Cherundolo has definitely downgraded the fun value of LAFC. Like Bob Bradley's LAFC, when they broke the points record and stuff, they were a pretty fun watch. And while I still respect them and what they do and the atmosphere and the fan base and everything, I wouldn't call them a fun watch.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of like, we'll absorb pressure and then we're gonna kind of go after the space that you leave in behind as you push up and push up and push up, and then we're gonna get Denis Bouanga in space. We'll get Ryan Hollingshead in space. We'll use big switches and things like that, and that there's something to that. Whether or not we're going to see an effective season from Olivier Giroud is a big question. Like, I don't know. Is he the right guy for the way that they play? Can he be good for them? At number 1, I got the Seattle Sounders. I find it difficult to believe that they aren't the best team on paper in the Western Conference, and that means that they'll win the conference. And you'll see in a second, I got even more honors for the Sounders. You don't have to think that Jesus Ferreira is going to score 20 goals or that Paul Arriola is some big weapon for them to think that those 2 additions are going to be important, right? They basically returned all of their goal scoring from last year, and they didn't score a ton of goals last year, so they need to add to that total. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was an issue that Seattle had an incredible defense. They gave up 35 goals in 34 games last year, but they only scored 51 times. And when you compare that to Real Salt Lake, 65 goals, the Galaxy, 69 goals, which I believe was the best in the conference, that's the kind of number Seattle has to put out. And if they can find a way to do that, they will win the West. And I will move on. They will win the Supporters Shield as well. I get my right graphic up here. So I got the Sounders winning the Supporters Shield. Now, that doesn't mean I think they're going to win MLS Cup. I think Inter Miami wins an MLS Cup, even though Inter Miami isn't going to be the Supporters Shield winner. And I still have them first in the East if you watch Wednesday's show. So it's not like I'm downgrading them dramatically. I'm not going to bet against Lionel Messi. I got Lionel Messi as MVP because if he gets, say, to, I don't know, 15-10, that should be simple for Lionel Messi. He will win MVP because he's Lionel Messi. Coach of the Year off the Supporter Shield that I think they'll win is Brian Schmetzer.
That's the only one I don't necessarily agree with you on. I think that Atlanta United's Ronnie Dyla might have a shout for this. If he gets Atlanta, where we think he is in the top 2, I think and he makes that new machine tick of the new players. I really think that he might have a shout here.
That is very possible. And the way that Atlanta's season ended last year and the change that they made and the money that they spent, they have a chance to make a big leap forward. And you're right, Dyla could benefit from that. I think that being Inter Miami works against Mascherano if, say, Inter Miami does what they did last year and then also does well it doesn't matter. The voting happens before the playoffs. So, or before we know who the champion is. So I don't think it matters necessarily, but I don't think if Inter Miami, unless they set another points record, unless, I don't know, he coaches up some players who aren't Lionel Messi and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba and Luis Suarez, I just don't think that Mascherano can win it, which is odd, right? Because part of this is the best team, the coach for the best team would have the inside track, except in situations where expectations are already high and you just meet them and then nobody goes like, yeah, you were supposed to do that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we shall see MLS 2025, the 30th season for the current Division I league in the United States. Major League Soccer's 30th season kicks off on Saturday in just over 24 hours. We are on the march to 1,000 and beyond for subscribers on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel. We're in the 900s or so. Be the very next to click the button and then have one of your people be the next after you. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. Follow along on social media at MKickaround, X, Instagram, and the Blue Sky. Or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And if you are able, we would be more than happy, over the moon, in fact, if you were able to throw a little bit of change, maybe buy us a coffee or maybe a scheduled donation. Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround to do so. Thank you in advance for doing that. We are going to take a quick breath and come right back with American Soccer is Weird here on Morning Kick Around. All right, American soccer is weird, and another uniquely American soccer thing, a new team that is being formed, not yet on the field, is asking the public for suggestions on some names. NWSL's Denver expansion team asking fans to write in and rank their favorite names. They put out 6 options here. You can see them on your screen. They wanted you to rank them from 1 to 6 on their survey. What do you make of these names, Mr. Davis?
Well, there's also, I believe there's also a write-in section. So if you don't like this name, and I saw some people pointing out when this dropped, like there have been clubs in the past that have put out options and then gone with something different. Like in the end, they didn't choose one of the potential names listed. Yes.
And I was just gonna say, we're gonna debate these names, but they're all 6 of these already better than Boss Nation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All of them knocked Boss Nation out of the water. Doesn't mean they're good because that bar is very low. Bar is very, very low. Now, first, just full disclosure, my parents are both from Denver. I have very strong feelings about the state of Colorado and the city of Denver. I never lived there myself. But I feel a part of that city. Like I feel that city is part of me. Maybe I'm a Denver Broncos fan. That's one thing I should declare openly. I am a Denver Broncos fan through and through. Have been since I knew what a football was. So I feel emotional about this, Robert. It's not just like, oh, I'm a soccer fan. I get to be all judgy about soccer team names. As somebody who has been judgy about soccer team names in the past, I feel like it's part of my job. Part of my job, right?
Judginess, reactions. I mean, your profession is to be a kind of a prisoner of the moment, to orate, narrate the moment, the reaction as they happen. So
yes,
some of that,
right.
borderline's judgment.
If you listen to the old radio show, The United States of Soccer, you'll know I made this kind of thing a feature of that show on a regular basis. We talked about badges, we talked about shirts, we talked about team names, and one thing I've been consistent with since I started really caring about American soccer or writing about it or talking about it is that we have to stop always defaulting to FC. Stop it already.
6 FCs on here.
I mean, why even bother, though? Like, this is one of those things like, I don't know, like when you're filling out a form and at the top you have to put your address and then it asks you like for your mailing address later and you can just put same. Why are we doing FC after every option? Why not just give the name part and then look, if you want to slap FC, I guess the only one that would definitely need it is Denver FC, which of course is the most boring that we should chuck out the window right now. Get that out of here. Denver FC. That's terrible. But everything else, you don't even have to put FC on there. We kind of presume now people running soccer teams are going to choose FC because they want to feel fancy and European, I guess.
It is a little bit of a mind bender to have all these football clubs entering a league that has soccer league in the name. I mean, Major League Soccer has dealt with that. And I actually think a couple of these are much improved names if you drop the FC. I think Denver Gold is kind of nice just on its own.
So Denver Gold is not original. Do you know that?
No,
are you aware?
It's not is it a beer name or something like that?
No, Denver Gold, a former team in the USFL from 1983 to 1985. Yeah. You should go look up their badge or their logo. It's basically just like a sunburst, a gold sunburst on a black background. Anyway, USFL. If you are aware, there was a team called Denver Gold. I'm not against reappropriating it. No one's thought about the Denver Gold football team in 30 years, but I don't know. It's not super original. Let's look at the other ones, though, right? And ponder. And so what we have here is a clear. The first four, we have a pretty clear theme: mountains. Colorado has mountains. Mountains are our theme. Denver Peak FC. Initial response in a vacuum. Forget the other ones, Robert. Initial response to Denver Peak.
I think that you're flirting with dangerous territory there, with like the Twin Peaks restaurant kind of connections and that sort of a thing. And I already saw when I saw this announcement already, there was already people kind of making peak jokes. So I think that might be a little bit dangerous.
Okay, I see. That is a good reason to stay away from that one. I also am not a big fan of Denver Peak. I don't think it rolls off the tongue, and then you bring up those issues.
So imagine a commentator, going on, and then Denver comes down and Peak score. What a great time for Peak here this afternoon. It doesn't.
It's just not. It's just one of those words that doesn't sound good. It does. When the more you say it, like if you have to use it in a rare kind of circumstance, like, oh, look at this, it's an incredible peak that we're about to climb. Sure, but when you're constantly saying, oh, Denver Peak, it's like this word has lost all meaning.
Yeah.
All right, Colorado 14ers, and anybody who doesn't know, Colorado has the most 14,000 plus summits in America. So the mountains of Colorado, there are 53 mountains that are 14,000 feet or taller. 14,000 feet, I guess, is kind of an arbitrary, this is a really big mountain kind of size. Like I said, spent a lot of time in Colorado. I remember this being a thing. I'm not against it. I mean, obviously it's in the same kind of, theme as 76ers or 49ers. In fact, Vancouver was the 86ers at one point in the old NASL, I think. So, or there was some team called the 86ers. What do you think about 14ers?
I think it's another thing that's kind of fun that it connects to the region that they're looking to represent, but it's another one of those things. If it's in regular conversation, you're watching a game, how many times do you want to hear them say 14ers? And I think people accidentally say 49ers. And I don't think it's good for throwing in regular speech.
That doesn't help for that theme. So when you talk about the 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers, you can shorthand it and go, oh, the Sixers. You talk about the 49ers, you go, the Niners. They're the Niners. They're not the 49ers all the time.
Teeners?
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. You don't want to be saying that. You don't want to be saying the Teeners. It doesn't flow the same way. Colorado Summit, generically mountainous. I'm not against it. It's okay. Denver Elevate. I don't like verbs. For team names as a general rule. Maybe there's exceptions out there where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, but I don't know. What do you think?
At least it's uplifting. It's a positive word. I mean, the Elevate are reaching for higher heights, so to speak. But I wouldn't say it's a classic, but I feel like it could grow into something. I'm not totally against it.
Maybe it's because it's not in that typical, and English is such a weird language, like sounder. Sounder is a verb, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they sounders because they occupy the sound? Like, oh, that person's a sounder because they occupy the sound. That's what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't. It's Elevate is like, I went down to GNC and I got a pack of Elevate for my workout tomorrow.
yeah, it's not awesome.
Yeah, it's not great. None of these are great. I've seen a ranking. Somebody else said they thought Elevate was the best. Go ahead and print it now. If these are the options, this is my ranking. If these are the options. Bottom of the list, Denver FC. Get it out of here. Don't care. Don't want it. I would say Denver Peak would be next. Don't like the sound of that. Denver Elevate again feels like something in the health space or something or fitness space. I would put Gold next. Then I would put 14ers, and then I guess Summit would be my top choice.
Ooh.
I guess.
That doesn't end up to be a good choice. I don't think. I don't think that one is.
Well, okay,
I don't think Summit is the peak. So I'll go top down. You went bottom up. I'll go top down. I'm going to start with Denver Gold, but drop the FC. Then I would go to Denver Elevate in my number 2. Then Denver Soccer Club I would do as a third.
No, you can't change it. That's not how this works. You're not allowed to change these. These are the names they suggested. You have to go with Denver FC. You cannot change it to Denver Soccer Club.
All right. So we'll start again. Number 1, Denver Gold. Football Club. Number 2, Denver Elevate Football Club. Then Denver or Colorado Summit FC. Then Peak, 14ers, Denver FC to round it out.
Okay,
But
you're not a 14ers person, got it.
no,
Okay.
no, I don't like the 14ers. I learned something about, the topography of the region by talking about this. But one part of this, the survey that they put out that I wanted to address that I thought was relevant as well, and it kind of speaks to the American soccer weird element. There was a follow-up question after the choice ranking is, would you prefer the team represent Denver or Colorado? And I
Right.
feel like that's almost a bit of a reflection of, like, sorry to say, like, the plasticness of this process, because they should already have this in mind. What is the origin of this team if they don't know who they want to represent already?
So, well, okay. I mean, I think there's a tradition in Colorado sports that some teams are Denver and some teams are Colorado. Like you have the Denver Broncos and the Denver Nuggets, but you have the Colorado Avalanche and the Colorado Rockies, right? So, I think there's just this idea of like, what do you prefer? Now, I would also say, again, just having a little bit of a connection to Denver and thinking about Denver, I remember when the Avalanche moved to Denver, there was a question, maybe you call them the Colorado Arsenal or something, Rocky Mountain Arsenal. There actually is an arsenal, like a weapons depot called the Rocky Mountain
Oh.
Arsenal. Now,
That's cool.
obviously in soccer that gets a little bit trickier because there is an arsenal. So you can't just call yourself something that another team is named in the same sport you're in. I think that gets weird.
But that's more relevant than Real or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing is, like, we have Bay FC, we have Gotham FC in this league, right? We have Racing Louisville. I know that the Louisville's in the name, but it's not the same. It's not this thing where you have to do city name and then
Word.
something. In this case, it's Denver, Colorado, Colorado. There's that part of Colorado is called the Front Range, right? That is the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains that Denver sits beneath. Why not Front Range Football Club or something that plays on some of that and doesn't have to see? No, I think it's romantic. It's one of my things of like the romance of naming a team that's not. Don't name it directly off the city because that's boring and easy. Why not name, or the state in this case? Why not do something like that? It's just an option. I'm just throwing it out there.
So you have thrown out a couple good viable options that I would say compete, if not go above these on the ones that are on the screen. And how much brain space did that take for you to come up with those?
I mean, first of
couple
all,
minutes?
I just rejected FC because that's not.
Well, that's what I'm saying
not-
is like these names I'm sure have been workshopped to a greater degree with some sort of board and consortium to pick these names for their suggestions.
I don't think so. No, I
No?
don't think so. I think this is the initial stages of they got some of the people involved in the club in a room. It could be Jordan Angeli, it could be the owners, it could be Tom Dunmore, who I'm friendly with back in the day, and they were just like throwing stuff out. And then there's a whiteboard, and somebody was like, "Colorado Summit, okay, it's going up." And then they put out their survey, and that's where we are, right?
Yeah, do
I
you
also,
want to
I also brought up the Denver Mint, which I think produces more coins than any other mint, certainly in America. I don't know if in the world. I know that one gets a little weird. Mint is kind of a hard thing to make your identity around, but there's something there.
It is kind of cool to like call something mint, like that's top notch. That team is mint. It's kind of cool. It could get a little bit weird, but I like that suggestion.
Well, because the dual meaning with the color, like which is what Charlotte is, what their whole thing is like. They have Minty, the mascot. I don't know exactly what that's all about. There's a Charlotte Mint too, I think, right? Isn't there a mint in Charlotte? Is that why they did the coins? There is, yeah. So that was the first one, I guess, the first branch.
Hey, kudos
the
to your fast
US Mint.
typing there to look that up. By the way, that was really quick.
I mean, it comes with the territory. You got to be on point with looking things up as you talk about soccer in America. All right,
There's some good suggestions in the chat for some Denver NWSL suggestions. I like Urias as the Rocky Mountain Rangers. I thought it's pretty good.
You like
there.
that one? Rocky
That's kind of
Mountain
fun.
Rangers?
It's a little bit outside of the naming conformity that we're looking at on the screen, I would say.
All right, this is B-Ray is indicating B-Ray is from Denver, Denver Soul, and part of the reason for that is Denver gets 300 plus days of sun a year. I mean, that's one of the things about that part of the world is lots and lots of sunshine. So Atletico de Denver. See, that's a lot going on there. I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. I don't know if that's the way you want to go with that. All
That's
right.
fun. And then Andy King with the FC Denver of Colorado, which I think is also a tongue-in-cheek suggestion.
I mean, yeah, that does feel like something somebody would try, though. FC Denver of Colorado. I mean, bring back the Caribous of Colorado. That was the NSL team with the fringe on the shirts. I don't know.
There should be at least a third kit sort of throwback, like a nod to that. That's got to come back in some way. That I think a lot more people do know. They don't necessarily know the name Caribous of Colorado, but that one team in America that had fringe on their jersey is something I think hit the national / international zeitgeist to a degree of some level. But great Friday program. Thank you to Peter Wilt. Thank you, MK Ultras in the chat and watching at home. Subscriptions. We are on the march to 1,000. We're in the 900s or so. Be the very next, and then tell your people to be the very next after you to subscribe. Morning Kick Around on YouTube. We are looking to grow and become a sustainable show. So hop on along to do that financially. Ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. You can donate as little as $5 one time, literally enough for a takeaway coffee, or contribute something larger, or a regularly scheduled contribution. We thank you in advance for doing so, and you can follow along on social media at mkickaround. Write us a note at morningkickaround@gmail.com. A whole ton of soccer ahead at the weekend. Major League Soccer starts tomorrow. Whole slate of European stuff, and we will be back on Monday to talk about all that and more. So Friday's been kicked, and until next time, everybody, enjoy your soccer.